Hello and welcome to the Rider Fitness webinar. I know we got a bit confused. I did the goal setting webinar before I did the Rider Fitness webinar, and they were in the diary the other way around, so I apologize for that. If you are wanting the goal setting webinar, you can watch the replay on my website candoequine.com and just go to webinars there and you'll find the goal setting one there. But today we're talking about rider fitness, and it's a good topic. It's a very, very important topic, and one that does get people a little hot under the collar, as I discovered yesterday. So yesterday, Horse and Hound actually put out an article about some recent research done by Dr. Sue Dyson, I think, looking at, she's from the Saddle Trust, and she was looking at rider weight and to see what the sort of ratio was between the horse and rider as to when the horse then started to get back injury and damage to the back if the rider was too heavy. Anyway, what they've found basically is that 20% of the horse's weight. So if you've got a 1,200 pound horse, that's a 545 kilogram horse, then your maximum weight, and that's you and your saddle together, should be 240 pounds or 109 kilograms. So that's a big horse. A 1,200 pound horse or a 545 kilogram horse is a big horse. And, you know, that's also quite a substantial person as well, 109 kilogram horse, a person. Wake up. So, you know, we're talking quite big figures here. Now, you got to remember that that includes your saddle. So a lot of Western saddles, you know, Western saddle can weigh 25 pounds. So you've got to take that into consideration. Dressage saddles or English saddles are lighter, but you still have to consider that as well. Anyway, so I posted this on Facebook yesterday, and I thought, oh, it's a really good article. Like, it's just a pilot study, it's just preliminary, but clearly there is a problem here, you know, because what they found was when they were putting heavier riders on, that the horses were actually getting sore backs, and this wasn't lasting for any length of time, particularly after the ride, but it was definitely affecting the horse's back and definitely causing the horse discomfort. So obviously a really big problem. Anyway, so I put this nice little article up there thinking, oh, that would be very interesting for everybody. And I had the most enormous backlash from people. And it's something that really upsets me when I put things up like this, because what the big thing they always come back with is, oh, yes, but that's not as bad as something else. So with this one, it's always, oh, yes, but you know, if the rider's well balanced, if it's a good rider, then it's different. You know, even if you get a light rider that's not very heavy and doesn't ride well, then that's really bad too. And yes, it is really bad. But just because it's really bad, it doesn't negate the fact that an overweight rider, you know, on a horse that's too small is also going to damage the horse. It's two different things, you know, it's apples and oranges. Yeah? If you're sitting on the horse like this and, you know, you're riding really badly and doing all sorts of other things to the horse and making the horse uncomfortable in that way, that's bad. Yeah, we should do something about that. That hasn't been studied yet. This has. Yeah. What hasn't been studied is, well, they actually, having said that, this pilot study used the same riders. So whether they were good or bad, let's assume I think they had 4 riders. So let's assume they were quite good riders. I don't think they'd be putting bad riders on horses. And, you know, they still had that effect. So it didn't actually matter what standard the rider was, because the rider was the same standard, and it was the weight that was affecting the horse, not the ability to ride. So that's another study, and that's something that should definitely be looked at, but it's something else, you know. So we can't say, oh, I don't care about that because you know, it's much more important that the rider's well balanced, because that we don't know that to be the case yet. So I think we have to sit up and look at these figures and say, you know, okay, 20% rule, let's think about that 20% rule. This is quite a generous rule. You know, there are other studies that have suggested that it should be a bit lower than that. And I don't know about you, but I've certainly, I've got a horse out in the paddock now that doesn't belong to me. It belongs to somebody else. But I'm not going to ride that horse because I'm too heavy for it. It's 14.2 or something, but it's not a very heavily built horse. And I've always felt that I've been too big for it. I've ridden it for very short periods of time, and I just haven't felt that the horse has been comfortable with my weight. So, I'm going to move that horse on to somebody younger or somebody smaller than me. And, I'm quite happy with that. But that's one approach. The other approach is I can do something about myself. And that's what we're talking about today. And that's also what the Can Do Equine Eat, Ride, Love course is all about. So I'll talk about that a little bit today as well. That's not actually available at the moment. So if you're interested in doing that course, just let me know. I'll put you on the waiting list, tell you when it opens. But I think that, rider health and fitness is very important. We all know that our health and fitness affects everything else that we do, not just our horse riding. It affects every aspect of our life. And so I think that we spend so much time looking after our horses. We really do. I know all of you do. We work out their diets, just to the last teaspoon of this, and we work out their exercise, and we do all of this stuff. And then when it comes to us, we're just like, I'll eat whatever's close, and no, I haven't got time to go to the gym, And I think we need to change that. I really do. I think we need to prioritize our own health and fitness so that we can do the best by our horses. I think it's very important. Now, for those of you that don't ride very often, you'll know that riding uses really specific groups of muscles, because when you do ride, they hurt like heck, afterwards. And those of you that ride a lot also know this, because you probably suffer from a bit of repetitive strain injury from doing the same things over and over again. And those are a couple of things that can be overcome by having an appropriate rider fitness program. And that's what we'll talk about today. So if you're unfit, you're going to get stiff and sore, you're going to have muscle strains, and it's going to all contribute to the possibility of you having an accident. One of the big things is you're going to be thrown off balance, and so that can upset your horse. That can make your horse do something seemingly unpredictable. So it is very important. So what we want really when we're talking about rider fitness is we want to build stamina and strength appropriate for riding. And so the first one is core strength. That's what we need. We need all that core strength, which contributes into our balance. So core strength and balance are very important. General flexibility. We do some odd things when we ride, not to mention the fact that we're sitting astride a 1,200-pound animal. So general flexibility is very important. And we need a high level of proprioception. Now, that means, knowing where your other parts of your body are in relation to these bits. So just knowing where everything is when you're not looking at it. And so that's also very important. So really, I think, if you look at a 6-day week, a sort of 30 to 60-minute daily routine. Now, and don't scream, I haven't got 60 minutes to do a daily routine. No, okay, that's absolutely fine. What you could try and do is schedule in maybe 2 or 3 60-minute sessions, and then get the rest in little chunks. And with the horse training as well, we're always chunking things down, and you can do that with exercising as well. And we'll talk about that more, how you can fit this into your day, because we really need to concentrate on that core strength. The muscle strength and symmetry is very important, that we sit up straight on the horse and we're not off to one side. Your flexibility and your cardiovascular endurance. So if you want to check your balance on the horse, so for example, if you're a jumper and your horse always lands to the left, maybe always lands on the left leg, that indicates that you're leaning a bit to the left and the horse is compensating for that. If you're a dressage rider and your horse always falls in, then you're probably leaning in to that side as well, and the horse is picking you up. So it might be, you know, your horse that always falls in on the right actually is just responding to the way you're sitting on the horse. So even if you've got a perfectly fitted saddle, which I hope you do, that can't compensate for your sitting on it at an angle, because the perfectly fitted saddle fits beautifully across the horse evenly. Once you do that to it, it completely ruins that pretty picture. So a good idea actually is to get somebody to photograph or video, even better, to video you from behind. So you just be on your horse and walk away from the camera or trot away from the camera and just see how even you are. It's really quite a good way of doing it. It's often hard to feel as well because of our muscle memory. You know, we've probably been sitting a bit like this for a long time and haven't really noticed. And then if you get the video, you can think, oh, okay, I'll straighten myself up. And that should feel quite different for quite a while. So it's a great idea if you can get somebody to video you. If you're very tight on one side as well, or if you're generally very tight and your flexibility is poor, it really prevents you from getting a nice deep seat, which is not going to help your riding at all. The deeper your seat, the more feel you have of the horse. So it's important that you're able to relax. So if your muscles are very tight, that can make you quite tense. And what that does a lot is that tension makes it very difficult to do things like sit to the trot, which you might want to do sometimes because it's easier for the horse, perhaps for just short periods, just to feel gently with the horse, to sit and get that rhythm going. But if your muscles are very tense, that actually pushes you out of the saddle, so bounces you out of the saddle. And of course, that tension will always come out because it will manifest in your clamping your legs onto the horse somewhere. So that is in turn going to make the horse tense. So then we come back to our very first thing we need the horse to do is relax, and we'll lose that if we're tense and therefore making the horse tense. And so if you're squeezing the horse, even without sort of realizing that, then that is going to pass on to the horse, and it's going to prevent the horse from getting nice and relaxed and soft in the bridle and being able to lift its back and move forward in relaxation. So it is very important. So I think, like anything, it's having a plan, and you can chunk things down into 5 or 15-minute sort of sessions. Like I like to do a sort of 10-minute morning stretch. I think stretching is really important, especially for us riders, because when we do sort of overdo it, the riding, we do get pretty stiff and sore. But if you have a nice routine of getting up in the morning and doing some stretching exercises just for 5 or 10 minutes, it really gets your heart pumping and just gets you going for the day. And it does address all of those muscles that have been, you know, standing or lying still all night and possibly gone a bit stiff and sore. So, you know, the other things, you need to assess what it is you need to address, I think, first. So having the plan, you need to work out, okay, well, it's all very well to say a plan. You don't want a general fitness plan. Last week we talked about goal setting. We've got to be specific, right? So the first thing to do is to work out what it is you really need to address. You know, what are the important things? So look at that video. You know, do you carry more weight in one stirrup than the other? That's a really common thing. There's a reason for that, and it means you're not symmetrical, so we need to work on that. Do you sometimes pitch onto your horse's forehand? You know, you pitch forward a bit, and that does block the horse's movement, to stop the horse moving forward. If you have a tendency to do that, then we need to work on that. And that comes into actually working on your shoulders. So if you've got the sort of instructor that keeps saying, put your shoulders back, put your shoulders back, what's happening is either you're tight across here or you just haven't quite got the strength. So we need to build this up so that you can generally improve your posture and get your shoulders back. If you suffer from a sore back, riding or after riding. That's really common as well. Now, the back muscles, of course, support your abdominal muscles, and they work together. So, by strengthening your back muscles, you're also going to be strengthening your abdominal muscles. So all of those core strength things, which are so important. Do you find that you get sort of out of breath when you're riding? And, a lot of us do. And that's just some more cardiovascular work. Now, I walk the dog on the beach every day, and this sounds great, doesn't it? Oh, that's really good. She goes for a walk on the beach here. But really, it's not really cardiovascular work. It's more of a stroll. So what I need to do is I need to push that up and to make that cardiovascular work. I'm already going out there. I'm already doing it. We push a bit harder. How can you tell? How do you know whether it's a stroll and you're looking at the turtles, or whether it's a good walk and you're really getting some exercise and building some cardiovascular strength? I think the difference is if you have to breathe out your mouth, then you're working your heart and lungs well, and that's worth doing. If you can, stroll along and chat with your dog, which I do, then you're not quite there. So step it up a notch, I think. So when we need to set a goal, so let's say we had a goal to ride our horse for 20 minutes with our shoulders back, no back pain, and not getting out of breath. Now, that would be a goal that's really specific, which we needed, and it's also measurable. So we can see if we're out of breath or not. We can feel if we've got the lower back pain. It's attainable as well. This is something we can do, whatever fitness level you're at, to ride your horse for 20 minutes, let's say at trot in the arena. It's a good attainable sort of goal. So I think it's, we'd need to put time on it. So timely is another one. And, let's think about this. Certainly by the end of January and all those things, we need to improve our back muscles, our shoulders, our back, and also our cardiovascular. So it's a good sort of goal. And if I was setting a goal like that, I would also set a weight goal for myself as well. So I think, once we get into goal setting for us, it becomes a bit more complicated than it was last week when we were talking about the horse. And quite often you'll be better off having several goals running at the same time. So there'll be your health and fitness goals, but you've got several different areas that you'll want to look at, and it's worth setting out those SMART goals, as we talked about last week, for each of those things. So one might be your weight, one might be your body measurements, and one might be your fitness level. So right, the plan. So what you need to do is work out which days you can do this and what time you have and where you're going to do it. And a lot of the time we think, oh, we're so busy. I'm so busy all the time. A few weeks ago, I decided what I would do was I would write down, I got an Excel spreadsheet and I colored in at the end of every 15 minutes and what I was doing. So I was doing PhD work, or I was riding the horse, or I was, cleaning the house, whatever I was doing. So I wrote it all down, and I finished the week. I did a week with a whole colored sheet of paper, right? Now, the first day I thought I'll do this, but I'll just do what I'd normally do. So I did that. It's like, have a little rest, do a bit of vacuuming. Oh, I might do a bit of gardening, potter around the garden, take the dog for another walk. And that was quite interesting because I realized I did all this completely unnecessary stuff. And then for the rest of the week, I thought, I don't want to write that down. I don't want to write down that I pottered about the garden for 15 minutes. So I'll do something else. And I got so much done. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. I really recommend you do it. Maybe don't do it for 7 days. That was a bit crazy. But maybe do it for 3. And do it retrospectively. So set your alarm to go off every 15 minutes, and then you've got to say in there what it was you were doing for those 15 minutes. Now, you might be in a 2-hour meeting, and that'll block out all that time. You might be picking the kids up from school, that'll block out all of that time. That's fine. But what it will show you at the end of those 3 days or 1 week, however long you do it, is where you have gaps that you really can put in something that would be more beneficial for your health and happiness. And those gaps might be when you're watching TV at night, or, you know, I don't know, anything. There will be times in there that you can squeeze in a 5 to 15 minute something that will help get you on track to reach your health and fitness goals. So that's the first thing to do, is to work out when you're going to do it. I think that's very important. And the next thing is to actually schedule it. So get another spreadsheet and put in all the things you have to do, and then put in where you're going to do these extra things, because these will be extra things. And put them into your schedule at the beginning of the week. I do mine on a Sunday night, and then it's set. And I don't have to make any decisions after that. I just have to look at my schedule and say, oh, okay, right, drop the kids at school. Now I'm going to do my exercise or whatever it is I'm doing. Yep. And it takes that willpower out of it. The hard thing is the willpower. It really is. It's but if it's scheduled, then you don't have to make the decision, because the decision has already been made for you. I find the same with food. You know, I try and schedule that as well. So, you know, I'm going to be eating X, Y, and Z. The decision has been taken away. I've done the shopping on the Monday, or whenever it is I do that, and everything is ready to go for the next 5 days. And there's no decision to be made. And I find that much easier to then, you know, stick to a plan that I had. And I think it's well worthwhile. I think it, you know, really does come back to that writing down your goals. And the more detail you can go into, the better off you'll be. I was really upset to learn yesterday that wonderful Harvard MBA story that I told you last week about the Harvard MBA students that they tested on goal setting, and they found that only 3% had written goals with a plan of executing them. And, you know, I can't remember what it was, another 84% had no goals at all. I think 84% had no goals at all. And then in 10 years' time, they came back and they found that the 3% that had those written goals with a plan of executing them were earning 10 times more than the 97% of the rest of them, right? It's not true. I was so disappointed. I've been telling that story for years. So apparently have a lot of people. Apparently it's not true. Somebody just made this study up, and it's quoted everywhere, but very disappointed. But I'm sure it is still the case that if you have a plan, if you write it down, you're much more likely to achieve it. And I know with diet and exercise, if you write it down, you're much more likely to achieve it. So let's start with that. Okay, now if you're going to be doing some weight training, you need to know where you're going to do that. You know, can you do that at home? Like I just use it at home. I've got some free weights, which are great. And so I do that at home. But then I need to know what exercise I'm going to do, how many reps I'm going to do, and what weight I'm going to use for the reps. And these sorts of things are difficult to work out on your own. So that's why I really developed the Eat Ride Love course, because it sets all of that out for you, which is quite helpful. But it's good just to have that plan, and then you can stick to it. And so for the Eat Ride Love course, you get 3 workouts, 3 weight sort of workouts. A lot of them are just body strength ones, but using your own body weight exercises, but others are just free weights. And you get 3 different routines to do a week. So Monday, I think you've got a leg day, and then Wednesday's right is core day, and Friday is legs day. So, you know, we've got those 3, and then on the other days we fit in some cardiovascular work or some other exercise of your choice. And I think that makes it quite easy for people. And in that app, it shows you put in the number of reps you did and the weight that you lifted. And so it shows you when you've got a personal best and all of that sort of stuff. So the tracking is great. And what happens is, you know, when you put when you do your second workout, you'll get another personal best probably, because you've lifted a bit more, or you've done a few more reps, and, you know, gives you a little star saying, yeah, your personal best. which is great because it's a small win. And the more small wins you can get, the better off you are, you know, the more motivated you are. It's these small wins that make us, you know, keep us motivated to want more. If we're just doing this in a vacuum all by ourselves and nobody ever says, hey, good job, then it's really hard to keep going. It does take quite a lot of willpower. But even having a little app, you know, that you can put your things in, it says, whoa, personal best, that is actually a small win, you know, and it tracks it for you so you can look back over there and say, oh, wow, you know, 2 weeks ago I was only lifting 5 kilograms. Now I'm lifting 8. That's so much better. And it tallies up, you know, how many kilograms you lifted today or this week or whatever. Anyway, it's pretty cool, and it is very motivating. And I think we need to find, you know, it's like with our horses, isn't it? You know, that's what I talk about all the time with the horses, is that you as the trainer, you're the motivator. You have to make it interesting for the horse, or the horse is just going to go, bleh, I'd rather go and stand in the paddock. And it's the same with this. You're also the motivator, but you have to find ways to keep yourself motivated, and tracking and getting some feedback is one of those ways. So very, very important. And you'll find, you know, for flexibility, if you do that daily stretching, like with that, with the Eat Ride Love course, there's a rider's morning stretch, and it's a 5 or 10 minute stretch program. But after 1 week, you'll see increases in your flexibility just after 1 week. With the cardiovascular work, if you do something twice a week, after 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to see real improvements in your cardiovascular level as well. And with strength gains, again, 2 weeks, if you work twice a week, after 2 weeks, you're going to see real gains in your strength, and you'll see those numbers going up, and it'll be easier to lift that 5 kilograms or the 8 kilograms or whatever it is. It will become much easier. So what you need to decide on is what weight you're going to do, how many reps, and how much, what the exercise is, how many reps, and how much weight you're going to lift. And then you need to work out what you're going to do for your cardiovascular activity. Quite frankly, I'm too old to run, but walking is very good. And so just try and walk a little bit faster. There's other things you need to pay attention to as well. And one of the big things that's often overlooked is sleep. And it's very important because when you sleep, your body is repairing. So all of this work that you're doing during the day, your body actually repairs overnight when you sleep. And there's a lack of sleep builds up cortisol in your body, and that, you know, promotes insulin resistance, and cortisol basically makes you fat. So, you know, there's a lot of things that contribute. Sleep is very important, and it's important that we do sort of think about that and schedule that in as well. The other thing with tracking is to make sure that you're keeping records, photographic records of yourself, and also measurements, because, you know, often the scales aren't terribly accurate. And as we get a bit stronger and lifting weights, you know, muscle is heavier than fat and all that sort of thing. Our body changes shape much more than, you know, it changes weight at some stages. So it's important that you have a record of that as well, so that you can keep seeing your progress. Again, it's back to these small wins. We need to be able to measure them. It absolutely has to be measurable. So do that. You know, do make sure that you're taking those measurements. And so those of you just getting stronger, you know, you want this measurement here. You know, how are my biceps going? Get a bigger bicep. It's good. It's motivating to do that. So making the most of your time, I've got about 12 points I just want to run through. So the first one is when you're doing your cardio, make sure that you're working hard enough to be breathing through your mouth. Okay, you don't have to run, you don't have to ruin your knees. Most of your knees are already ruined anyway. But, you know, be working hard enough. Make the most of the time. You're out there, you might as well do it. So with strength training, do things which are multi-joint movements. Now, free weights are great for this because, you know, you're often moving a lot of joints at the same time. Body weight exercises are also really good for that, multi-joint movements, as are cable-based machines. So any of you that go to the gym or have a home gym, cable-based machines are great for that as well. With the strength training, you want to lift heavy with lower reps. Because if you lift light and do lots and lots and lots of reps, that's only useful if you do that to failure, which means you actually can't lift another one. Whereas if you lift heavy and do fewer reps, you fail quite quickly at that. And that's what you want to do. So yeah, fewer. Sorry, I'm just reading a message here. So I registered for this one today and it said this webinar was to be held on the 11th. I know, Susan, but in Australia it is the 11th. So I'm sorry about that. You might have to watch the beginning in the replay. So the next one is the muscles. We want to work the muscles that we're going to use when we're riding, but we want to work those muscles to a fuller range of motion. So because what happens is that when we work muscles, if we then get a bit stiff, they shorten up a bit. So we actually want to work a fuller range of motion than we would otherwise. Yeah, I think that is quite important. We want to stretch them so that we're more flexible. So that would be, things like if you're lifting, just to go way up rather than just, doing smaller motion. So the bigger your motion, the better off you'll be. You want to work your glutes and your outer thighs and your hips. And that will really help you have a deep seat with the horse, and it will stop that lower back pain as well. So it's really important. Your glutes, your outer thighs, and your hips. Those things are really important for riders. And your shoulders. How often do you get told that you need to put your shoulders back? And the reason is we just do this all the time. And it's really bad for our horse because it brings us down on the horse's forehand, and it doesn't allow the horse to come up in front of us, which is what we want. So it's very important that we work those shoulders, that they are nice and strong. So, you're better off doing 2 minutes of core exercises a few times a day than you are doing 15 minutes of core exercises once or twice a week. So what you think about it as a cumulative figure. So what you're really looking for is 100 to 200 repetitions a day of a good core exercise. So that might be sit-ups, it might be push-ups, it might be planking, but something like that. Good core exercises, 100 to 200 reps a day. And you don't have to do them all at once. Build up to it, but track it so that hey, look, I can do one. I started off, I could do one push-up. But you can break these things down. Like if you can't do a push-up on the ground, you can probably do one off the bench here. So off the wall, even you could start on the wall. You can do a push-up on the wall, and then get to lower things here to the bench, then to the table, then to a stool, and you can work up. But it's really good to start and to track so that you can see that improvement, because it's very motivating. And remember that you will need to work your back and your core, and that your sides are also part of that. So all your back, your abdominals, and your sides all support your riding posture. So they're all really important to work on. But I think generally be mindful of your posture all the time and think about engaging your core all the time. So if you're mucking out the stables, think about that. Engage your core, be mindful of your posture, keep your shoulders back, and muck out the stables like that. And you'll be surprised how quickly, just by thinking about it, just by thinking, have I engaged my core? Yes, I have. Keeping my shoulders back, I'm walking properly. You will really start to build up those muscles, and you'll become much more comfortable generally, and certainly after riding. So the other thing is to breathe more into your abdomen. And this is going to help you as well. It's going to help you relax. It's going to help your horse relax. But it just really helps you focus on your core And so do practice that too. It's a good relaxation technique if you feel a bit stressed, to do, you know, just a few minutes of deep breathing into your abdomen, because it really does chill you out. It's very good. And the final thing is accountability. So find a friend. You know, now you have the perfect place here with the Can Do Equine community, because we're very supportive and everybody's very nice in here. And I will tell you when the eRide Love course opens again, because I think you guys will enjoy that. And it's really important that you have somebody that's like-minded that you can discuss this stuff with, because, you know, like when I put that post up yesterday about the Ride Away, we don't need those people, really. We don't need those people in our lives. A couple were very nasty. One of them said to me, oh, I never thought Can Do Equine would make me feel badly about myself. All right, I said, well, I'm not making you feel badly about yourself. You're responsible for, you're completely responsible for your own emotions. All I'm doing is telling you what science says. You can take from that what you like. No, I'm not trying to make anybody feel badly about themselves. What I'm trying to do is offer people some information that they can act on if they wish to, and I'm trying to help them act on it. So, you know, please don't get upset by the idea, because that riders should be a certain weight for their horses. What I'm trying to do is stop problems happening later. And I myself, you know, have horses that I won't ride. I won't ride horses that are too small for me because I'm too heavy for them. It's not fair on the horse. And if there's a horse I particularly want to ride, then, you know, I'll make sure that I am in a fit state to ride that horse. That's my responsibility. If I have a horse that's small that I really want to ride, then I will make sure that I can do that. And I won't say that I'm just a good rider and I'm well balanced and therefore it's okay, because it's not okay. It's really not. They've shown it's a preliminary study, but they have found this, and so it's not okay. And it's a bit like the noseband thing. You know, people, when we came out with the noseband, or tight nosebands hurt horses. Well, there's a couple of arguments against that. One, people say my horse is habituated to that. Really? Your horse doesn't mind having its mouth clamped closed? That's interesting. How do you know? Oh, never said anything, didn't tell me. So, you know, that's just a stupid argument, really. And the other one was, oh, yes, but it's not as bad as, and then they come up with all sorts of other things. Oh, it's not as bad as the racehorses being whipped. Well, apples and oranges, right? Yeah. It's completely, the racehorses being whipped is completely irrelevant. It's another subject entirely. We're talking about noseband tightness. You know, here we're talking about Ride Away. You know, it's things we need to discuss. It's things that need to come out in the open. And we're much better off talking about them and addressing them and doing something about them and being aware. You know, there's nothing more dangerous than sticking your head in the sand, especially with a topic like this, because if your horse is uncomfortable, if your horse is in pain, then that is going to have repercussions and they're not going to be nice, you know. So we need to address it, and we need to address it early on. And that's what I'm doing. That's what Can Do is doing, is we're going to confront these issues and talk about them and see what we can do about them, rather than sticking our head in the sand saying it's not as bad as something else, or it's not relevant because I'm a good rider. It is relevant. We know it's relevant. You know, it's a bit like the tight nosebands. We know it hurts. It has to hurt. Nobody wants their mouth clamped closed. We know it's relevant. What we need to do is sort it out. And maybe it means getting a bigger horse for some people. You know, maybe a couple of those people that, well, actually, most of the people that wrote yesterday on that post that I put up, most of the people, if they looked at the 20% rule, were well within their capabilities to ride that horse. They were well under what they should have been. So, you know, it's funny. People need to actually sit down and do the math, work it out. Is it a problem? Yes or no? If it is, then do something about it. If you're worried, perhaps you should be doing something about it anyway. Yeah? Anyway, that's it from me today. It's spot on, Kate. I did discover no core exercise quite as good as riding. Yeah, well, it's interesting, Kelly. No core exercise quite as good as riding. Yeah, I do agree with that. But I also think that if we can do other things, then when we do get on the horse, we're more balanced and more symmetrical as well. So I think the more we can do off the horse also is really helpful as well. Yeah. So I'd definitely go for both. I like to get a lot of my cardiovascular work on the ground with the long lines, actually. But yeah. Anyway, I will see you. Those of you that are in the Gold membership, I'll see you this afternoon, my time at 6 o'clock, because we're now having 2 meetings a week because the people in the UK were finding the previous time a bit difficult. So we're having a Tuesday meeting at 6 p.m. and we're having a Friday meeting at 8 a.m. That's Brisbane time. I'm not sure what it is in the US and Canada, but I hope to see you there. But if I don't, you can, of course, watch the replay in the Gold membership site. So I'll see you there. Bye.